Hey everyone, today I want to show you how to factor polynomials by finding the greatest common factor. And this is one of those things that's best learned by example. So let's say we had this polynomial right here, x squared plus x, and we wanted to factor it. So first let's identify what common variables they have. So we have two terms right here. We have this x squared, we have this x, this positive x. So they both have an x. That's a good starting point. So they both have an x. So if I write an x down here and I set up a parentheses, so let's divide each term by x. So x squared divided by x and x divided by x. What is x squared divided by x using the quotient rule that we've learned about? X squared divided by x is x to the first power, which is just x. So x. And what is x divided by x? So anything divided by itself, with the exception being 0, but any number divided by itself is always 1. So positive x divided by x is positive 1. And that is how we factor this polynomial right here that we started with, x squared plus x. So if you look at what we've done with how we factored it, we found the greatest common factor. So the greatest common factor is x. And that is the number, or that is the term, the greatest term that could be pulled out from the polynomial. And if you take a look at what we've done, if we distribute this x, so let's erase this. If we go ahead and use the distributive rule to distribute this x, so x times x and x times positive 1. So what's x times x? That is x squared. And what's x times positive 1? That's positive x. We will get right back to where we started, x squared plus x. So factoring is essentially the reverse of distributing. So when we want to factor, our goal, to erase these, our goal is to get from here to here. That is factoring. That's factoring. And to get from here to back here, we have to distribute. Distribute. And in this case, as we saw, we would distribute the x to each term on the inside of the parentheses. So that's a simple example. Let's go to a slightly more complex example. Let's say we had 3xy plus y. Let's try to identify the greatest common factor here. So what variables or numbers do they all share? We'll do both of these terms share. So we have 3xy and we have positive y. So what variables do they share? Well, they both have a y in it. So they both have a y. And that is all they share, in fact. So the greatest common factor there is y. So let's pull out the y. So to factor it, we would take a y, we would set a parentheses around it, and we would divide each term by y with what we're factoring. So 3xy. So let's erase these. So 3xy divided by y and y divided by y. What is 3xy divided by y? That is just 3x because the y in the numerator and the denominator will cancel out. So that is just 3x. And what's y divided by y? So those cancel out. Anything divided by itself is 1. So that is how we factor that polynomial. So y times parentheses 3x plus 1. And that's how you deal with it if there are multiple variables. But now let's go with an even slightly more complicated problem. Let's say we had 3xy plus 6y. Okay, let's find the greatest common factor here. So look for common variables and numbers. They both share a y. So same as before, they both share a y. And they both have a number attached to them. So this one has a 3, and this one has a 6. So 3 and 6. 3 and 6 actually share a common factor. 3 and 6 share a common factor of 3. That is because 3 is the same as 3 times 1, and 6 is the same as 3 times 2. So they both share a common factor of 3, similar to when we were studying fractions and we were trying to find the least common denominator. In this case, the greatest common factor is 3, so we can pull a 3 out of both of these. So 3, and let's go ahead and factor this. So our greatest common factor is 3y. 3y. Let's set up a parentheses, and now let's divide each of these terms. What is 3xy divided by 3y, the greatest common factor? And what's 6y divided by 3y? So if we take a look, these y's would cancel out, these 3's would cancel out, and we're just left with x for the first term. So x, now let's take a look at these. These y's cancel out, and then we're left with 6 divided by 3, which is 2, positive 2. And that is how we factor that polynomial. And now let's go with an even more complex polynomial to factor using the greatest common factor. So let's erase all these. And let's say we had something like 4x to the third, 4x to the third y cubed plus 8x squared y plus 12xy. Okay, so this is slightly more complicated, but we want to find the greatest common factor. That is our goal. Let's find the GCF and use that to factor this polynomial. So what do we got here? Well, they all have x and y, right? So this one has x cubed and y cubed, right here, x cubed, y cubed. This one has x squared y, and this one has xy. So they all have at least an xy. They all have at least an xy. So that's something we could factor out. Now let's take a look at the numbers. So what numbers do they all have? This one has a 4, an 8, and a 12. So what is the factor that they all share? So if we just, another way to take a look at this, let's write out the numbers, 4, 8, and 12. So 4, we can break down to 2 times 2. 8 can also be broken down to 2 times 4. And then 4 again can be broken down to 2 times 2. And then 12 is really just 2 times 6. 6 is 3 times 2. Okay, so what factor do they all share? Well, 2 times 2 right here is 4. Right here, that's a 4. Let me scroll down a little bit. So that's a 4. There's a 4 right here in this 8. And there's actually a 4 if we multiply this 2 by this 2. So that's a 4. So they all share a factor of 4. Because another way to think about it is 4 is the same as 4 times 1. 8 is the same as 4 times 2. And 12 is the same as 4 times 3. So they all share a factor of 4. So that is something we can include in our greatest common factor. So our greatest common factor would be 4xy. So let's go ahead and factor that out, the 4xy. Let's erase all of these. Okay, so 4xy. 4xy, we will set up outside of a parentheses, and we will go ahead and divide every term by 4xy. So let's divide this by 4xy, divide this by 4xy, and this one as well by 4xy. So let's erase these. Okay, so these 4's cancel out, 4 divided by 4, and x cubed divided by x using the quotient rule, that's x squared, so x squared, and then y cubed divided by y is y squared, again using the quotient rule. So 8 divided by 4 is 2, positive 2. In this next term, x squared divided by x is x, and y divided by y, those cancel out. Now, over here in this third term, 12 divided by 4 is positive 3, and these xy's cancel out. Perfect, so let's just write this over here, this parentheses. And we are left with this right here in its factored form. So that is how we factor the original polynomial that we started with. So I hope this video helps you understand how to factor polynomials using the greatest common factor. I really hope it helps, and please let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below. Thank you for watching.